Commissioners, Water District, Finance Committee meeting, today's date.
14th.
June 14th.
Thank you. June 14th at 3 o'clock. Being the time and place, we'll have the meeting.
Ready for me?
Yeah.
Sure,
All right.
why don't you just jump right in?
I'll jump in. So we were here. I had two.
Mhm.
I should forget who was with me. Two other staff with me last week. Monday, Tuesday, we were here doing our interim portion. So it's all looking at the internal controls, the processes in place. We're not looking at numbers in any way, shape, or form. We'll do that at year end in the fall when we come back.
Fine.
Get another. No worries.
Mike,
Thank
I
you.
have it created, so you have to use that to get in.
Okay, appreciate your help.
Who is the meeting?
And Samantha. Gosh, good memory. You memorize those names. So yes.
He keeps everything in there.
Oh,
He knows any questions you have, he's got
Pull
that.
it.
got the answers. I should have brought my.
Even questions that I wouldn't even think of asking, he's got the answer.
My answer box.
So yeah, like I said, we're not looking at numbers. We will do that in the fall when we're back after year-end closing. We have our trial balances to work with, and we're preparing financial statements, or helping, I should say. So the areas that we tested, so we do control testing where we're actually looking at a sample of typically like 40 transactions is considered acceptable from our auditing guidelines. So we did it over payroll, and this is where I think our first year we had one exception that we noted. We did it again last year, had no issues, and so we did it again this year just to confirm, and then we had two control exceptions. So what it was is just timesheets weren't signed by the appropriate, I think it was supervisors not having the signature
Sorry to interrupt.
present, yeah.
Can you kind of start at the beginning and tell us what you do before you come out for the audit, like your preparation for it? Like
Sure.
Your staff meetings, BBC checklists, stuff like that? if you
Sure,
have it?
yeah. So what I do is probably at least a month or two before, I have a very detailed request list that I send Wes of items that I need. So stuff like if you guys have updated policies and procedures during the last year since I've last been here, I'd like to see those. If there's different people involved in these key processes, payroll, AP, receipting, cashiers, stuff like that, I kind of want to know where there's new employees, because that's going to designate a potentially higher risk for someone who doesn't know what they're doing. It's kind of new to the process.
And you go through the types of risk as well when you meet with your staff to identify which ones are the riskier areas.
Correct.
So
Yeah. So I fill them in. We meet with Scott and the staff who are going to be on the job before we even come out, so to give them an idea, kind of explain the background of the entity, what it is that you guys do. Any specific things that you guys might be looking for, where the higher risk areas are. And so in most entities it's always stuff related to revenue, cash collections, obviously subject to theft. It's it's possible, it's an inherent risk. And then the opposite side would be the things that aren't as risky, capital assets, big things that someone can't easily go walk off with a truck. It's going to be noticeable. So those are our lower risk areas. And so we kind of address the procedures that we're going to take. The higher the risk, the more work we're going to do, the more samples that we're going to look at. That's why payroll, cash disbursements, those are the two biggest. Cash receipts are a little more difficult at a water district. Say for a city, for example, our approach would be it's property tax, sales tax. We can get confirmation from the state or whatever agency is making those payments. Here it's a little different. It's a lot more of an analytical review, but we do go in and drill down and test that the system is calculating your rates in accordance with whatever has been approved with your Prop 218 process. So I go in and I get a billing register for a random couple months. I pick these handful of customers, and based on the usage that the meter reader collected, I go in and recalculate what I think it should have been based on your approved rates, and I compare it to what was actually on the customer's bill. And I down to the penny it needs to be on, and we had no issues there. That's always pretty, nearly perfect. So those are the areas that we're looking at. Cash disbursements, we didn't have any issues, and that's the controls that we were looking at there is that there's proper approval on the invoices for the payment. I can't remember the details off the
Usually
top of my
receiving
head.
probably then proper approval for the payment.
For sure, yeah. For sure the individual payment approval by whatever various levels there are, it's usually at least finance and whatever department it came from. Okay, so what else? And then, compliance with, so the compliance side is more of the utility billing, making sure that it's all being calculated correctly, and then the purchasing policy. So we kind of work with Wes and with engineering predominantly to get a list of contracts that were entered into during the fiscal year under audit. And we'll pick a few, random ones depending on how many we're looking at. I think we have like 5 or 6 this year, so I think we just looked at them all because that wasn't that many.
So they went through all the board minutes, they found all the contracts that were approved by the board, and they asked us for copies of those contracts.
So we look at, if a purchase order was required, if it was properly approved, if, the proper signatures were on the contract that it anything that was outlined in the purchasing policy, those guidelines, that's what we're applying to whatever the contract was that we were looking at. So varying thresholds, are gonna give us, differing attributes that we're looking for. So no problems with those. They were not very many, so it wasn't a challenge. Let's see. So those were the areas that we really looked at. Are there any questions on those before I move on?
I have a question, Steph.
Yeah.
How many people do we have that touch cash? Or have the ability to touch cash?
Actually touch cash, you'd have the front counter, so there's whoever would be working the front counter, typically it's one or two people at the same time. And then you have petty cash, which Fabi also touches. So, but that's minor, we have like $700 in petty cash. So really the cash up front, it's usually two people at the front desk.
How many people can work the front counter? How many people are qualified to work the front counter?
I think we have 6.
Everybody in customer service can rotate up to the front counter and
That
cover.
means all customer service can touch cash.
So if somebody's sick or somebody's going to training, you have to rotate people up there and cover for breaks and lunches and things like that.
Casual, I found from a small business, is where you always have your problems if you didn't have one. Pardon my cough, I start to cough. Checks and balances on cash are always a question, because for small businesses, that's where money disappears.
It's gonna be a high-risk area.
You have checks and balances only because we have a turnover of personnel there as well. We have both things that you were just, one thing you were just talking about. We have a turnover, and I think we still have a temp, I think. We
The
still have a
temp isn't allowed to touch cash.
Oh, okay.
She's not allowed to.
Because it's not a district employee,
Yeah.
is that the rule?
Yeah, she's
Okay, so she never works the front counter.
no.
What does she do?
She mostly works on the phone.
Answers phones and that's it.
That's phone.
Helping customers with complaints.
Okay. And I assume you have all the controls necessary to worry about cash. If someone were to pay you $50.13, that
Yep.
it goes in the right place, she gets a receipt, because I assume we should still get cash at the front.
Yeah.
As much as I think we should be working very hard to stop that practice. We don't seem to be doing that for some reason, I don't know why.
It's typically between 3,500 and 6,000 per day, so it's not like it's a really large amount of money. But I'm just saying, it's minimal compared to our cash receipts on a daily basis.
This is-
Oh, yeah, because it's the smaller users that do that, I understand that, but it's just, if they would, if, and I said this, and I almost got my head handed to me once, if we didn't have anyone paying cash, we would have less employees in that department. If we had less employees in that department, it would cut our overall cost. So I think we should really be using some of our billing information to explain to people. For instance, for myself, I just went on a direct pay to SDG&E, and I've been using it for 50 years. And I just did it. And I'm going, well, there was no incentive for me to do it, but I'm saving the stamp price. But SDG&E, almost every other bill reminds you to do that. And they're doing that for a reason, because that costs them a lot of money to process checks, where the one-time zip, it doesn't cost them anything. So my thought process will be, and I will explain to the board, I think we need to
Encourage that.
encourage people to do direct deposit, what's it called, CT?
Well, we have auto withdrawal, we have credit card payments, we have several
Oh,
other forms of payment.
Yeah, I think we really should be pushing people to do that because we could cut down staff. And essentially, 20 years from now, you might not have any staff doing that. They'll be answering phones, but all bills are going to be paid electronically. If you read some of the crazy books that are out there now, the non-cash society. I know one of our board members is a big believer in that. I don't think it's going to be true, but it could be closer to it.
Right after we adopt the metric system. in this
Right,
country.
right. And soccer becomes the number one sport.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
So I don't know if there's a direct correlation to number of staffing and the way that people submit payment. At first you started talking about cash and then you added checks, so between the two of those, maybe
People walk in the front door. Yeah. I mean, well, that automatic transfer
Right,
is a way for all businesses to go,
sure.
if you can do it, because you get rid of the people in the front, some of them.
Yeah.
You still have to answer phones, you still have to do some, whatever else they do, but they don't have to, take in, so I think, instead of having two people in the front window, that makes one.
Now we have one. We're set up staff to have one. What we get a lot of in the front counter is there's a certain demographic here in San Marcos that pay in cash, don't necessarily have bank accounts.
Right. But they probably have a cell phone.
Probably, yeah.
Everybody has a cell phone. So I'm just saying, our education process, we can work on it.
A couple things along this discussion. I know $3,500 to $6,000 is, on the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money, but definitely could be enticing for somebody, a thief, right? And so somebody to come in outside and just hold the place up. And I know we've put some security features in place, which is great. But do we also have? I'm assuming that we have policies or processes that say that once you don't just keep $6,000 in the front drawer, right? You have a safe or something, or
Safe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we put it in a bag, in a deposit bag for the armored car to come pick up at the end of each day, and that bag goes in the safe. And then once a week, the armored car shows up, we give them all the bags, they sign off, and then they go.
And then the second thing is, I really hope soccer does become the number one sport.
The record show.
That's
As
the
soon as they
record.
can find a way to advertise, that's
Yeah.
the problem, there's no timeouts.
Yeah. That's the good thing about it.
That's the big problem.
Why we like it. Why we like it.
Never saw that 50 years ago.
They need to have sudden death in every game, though. That's the, to me, that was
It is a little anticlimactic when they end in ties.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
On the same token, not to bring it down to this level, but I'm assuming that staff also knows if they are robbed, to give them everything they have. I mean, is that a class, or how do you tell your people that? Are they all old people, or are they all,
Yeah, I
not
know
old?
that.
Have these employees
I
been here a
think
while?
it's
Or do you have any new ones that might not understand?
We have new ones, but we let them know that in the event of a robbery or anything, it's not worth your life. Give them what they want, what you have on hand, give it to them, and get them out of the building, and then call the police.
I even did that at the bank, yeah. That's
So the timesheets, the variance to control exceptions, the timesheets, and that was, who wasn't signing them?
I do not remember off the top of my head. I can get it for you, but it was, I don't know if you guys remember, I
So
might have
the-
mentioned it.
The person signs their timesheet and then the supervisor signs it. So they tested all the timesheets and found two that weren't signed by the supervisor.
By a supervisor, correct. So, if you want those details, I can look them up again.
We're just
but-
gonna assume it's
Okay.
in.
I couldn't remember what department, it wasn't John's.
When in doubt, blame it, he's not here.
If I may follow up on that, so on those two, did you look deeper into the timesheet? They didn't claim 60 hours a week or anything
No,
like that.
it wasn't anything, abnormal. So what we did, that will force us, because the control testing didn't work, it failed at that point. So that means we can't rely on the controls over that area, so we have to do a little bit more testing at year end over the final balances. So it's just gonna cause us a little more work at the end, but that's the audit process, that's how it goes.
Oh,
That's
so
how
you
it is.
delve deeper into it.
Later on, we will over the actual balance of it.
So
Since
in-
we can't rely on the process this year, we do more substantive work.
So internally though, once you're notified that there's exceptions, you look into them deeper and you take whatever steps are necessary to correct it. Do you actually talk to that supervisor and say, hey, you do? Okay.
And then I wanted to just jump back to that, the cashiering, cash receipt process. We do an observation when we're here of that whole process and closing at the end of the day, and where, we see the physical accesses to the vault and where the till goes at the end of the day and where that bank bag that he's talking about goes. So we're still observing all those controls that, and verifying that those are in place as well. And so there
Do you find
no
more and more of
issues
your
there.
business going to electronic transfer? I would think so. It just
I
makes
haven't
so
really
much
seen
sense.
a change, I would say, but that's the bulk of everyone's transactions, yes.
Well, it's the bulk of ours, I know.
Yeah.
What percentage would you say are either automatic pay or credit card transactions?
Oh, what's automatic pay? It comes out twice a week, and it can range, but we have 6,000 out of about $200,000 a day on average, I think, that we receive. So, and then you have checks as well.
We have multiple ways that our customers can pay.
Right.
So there's the direct debit, which Wes just mentioned, that's twice a
ACH.
week. It comes out on Wednesdays and on Fridays. And then any day, our customers can go on to the online site and pay their bill, and that comes in daily. And then we have something called official payments corp, where people can pay with a credit card, but they also pay a convenience fee too. Usually that's a last resort for a lot of customers. They're going to get locked if they don't make a payment, so they'll call and they'll use that credit card method there. But otherwise, we just take checks or cashier.
That convenience pay, which I totally understand, is it the same identical amount as
For
what the
everybody.
credit card company has, we're paying them?
We don't pay the credit card company. We don't. The customer pays the credit card company on their own because we don't accept credit cards here. We would have to pay. We would either have to absorb the fee from the credit card company or pass it on to the customers.
So that when you do, you just said some people pay by credit card.
Yeah, because they pay through a third party, and then they pay that third party for the convenience of using their credit card.
So it's
The
not
third
through us.
party. The third party remits the total amount back to us.
Okay, so there's no
No
loss,
cost
no,
to us.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's all I really had over the actual areas that we tested. In relation to payroll, something that we noticed during our discussions with your payroll technician, Sally, was that she technically has the access in the system to change pay rates and edit pay rates, and she's the one processing the payroll. That's typically not something that we see, and so it's not something that we're saying is going to be a finding. It's just, a suggestion for you guys to strengthen your controls. So we suggest always that, someone in HR has the authority and access to change the rates in the system. And that's restricted to the payroll individuals, because obviously then the HR side, they can't run payroll, so unless there's,
Collusion.
Thank you, collusion, we can't really avoid that,
Is that
but.
something to think about implementing?
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Right now, the HR determines this person is eligible for a pay increase, and then it gets approved through the approval process. And then HR sends that piece of paper down to the payroll person. She goes into the system and changes the rate.
Right, but as of right now, it's really just that person that could do it, unaware of anyone else.
But it is checked by a second person
It is
before
reviewed.
it's ever paid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are controls over
Who's the
that.
second person?
Debbie Johnson, the account.
Yeah, the account.
So she reviews the AP edit list before it's ever posted.
So these are
And I also
considered
do-
compensating controls, is that there's that review. John has another kind of, monthly or bi-weekly analysis that he does as a whole. These are decent compensating controls. That's why we're not suggesting this as a blatant finding to you guys, because there's still other things in place. But we're still always going to suggest
an
a best
opportunity to
practice, yes.
And just out of curiosity, I think you guys, this is the third year with us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall this coming up before. Did something change from last year, or did it just not get caught last year?
Probably just didn't come up in
Okay.
conversation, yeah. Sometimes it just depends on who's working in that area, and we had a newer staff that just happened to have this conversation with payroll and.
So you need to talk to the staff about when they're talking to auditors, just answer the question.
That's the same way you answered it last year.
Like you said, it was a new employee.
Cool.
So yeah, that was the only suggestion we had for this year. But as always, everything looked great.
We asked the first year and the second year, I think, for you to look into credit cards, which I think you did. You looked at something and everything was according to COIL. But if I remember, at that time, John, you said that we couldn't use a company credit card to get the rewards back from the company because we're a company of some type. And I was like, that doesn't make sense because other people do that. You were saying that we can't get a credit card company, and I'm saying with all the money we spend from our trips and everything else, that if you got 2% back, it would be good for our bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
But you said for some reason we can't do that.
I don't recall saying that we can't do that because we're a company,
No,
or.
it was because we were government, we
Government
don't get the
agencies.
same reward, and it was a very, and I know you looked into it, it was just such an insignificant amount we would get, but then we'd have the extra accounting and the controls that came with P cards, purchase cards and stuff like that, so.
Or because you're a governmental agency.
Yeah,
Right.
same thing with CDs, we don't, when they publish a rate for a CD, and then we used to go in and, hey, give me, nope, that's, the rate's not available for government, because they have to, their transaction process is different for municipalities and governments, so they take more off the investment earnings to cover their administrative costs.
So what was the minuscule number?
I can't remember, we did that so long ago when it first
Yeah.
came up, or John did that a while ago.
Okay.
I can go back and research.
That's for the
Those findings are not going to change now. So governmental agencies, see, I didn't understand that because I was thinking company. I know because my small companies, I use those cards all the time,
Yeah.
but I'm not a governmental agency.
Yeah, I've never seen one of my governments use, let's say, a normal credit card that would receive those kind of benefits. They're all on like Cal cards,
Right.
which don't really get anything.
They're out of
So,
that, that's
yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have any other questions. The last 2 years, you've covered just about everything. The bottom line is, as you say to Scott, doesn't really matter because you're not liable. It's not like there's a liability question here. You know, you have to do it because it's government control. All the new things that Tom used to talk about, TK 500 and ZYX3, and we're in compliance with all those things.
Gatsby's
Gatsby's.
maybe?
Yeah, Gatsby, we're in compliance with all that stuff.
They come out with
Yes.
10 new ones a year or
Yes.
something
I
like
know.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, and you check for that.
Yes,
As
yeah.
well as we know our
We're on
staff
top of
does
it.
that.
And
So.
they'll have footnote disclosure about it as well, anything that's new that came up.
A big one will be next year for the OPEB. It's gonna be a good 10 pages.
That'll add quite a bit again, like the
For,
pensions.
for which one?
The other post-employment benefits, the retirement benefits we pay.
So like how,
And we don't have other post-employment
We
benefits.
do for the
Yeah.
grandfathered folks.
Yeah, for the, not for new employees.
Right, for existing.
Yeah.
Or,
So was it 2013? Is that when the
Yes,
district
July
stopped
1,
providing OPEB?
so 2 years ago, one of the Gatsby 68 made you guys put your pension liability with CalPERS on the face of your statements and have this additional disclosure. It used to be, a paragraph, and now it's 10 pages
That's
just
huge.
about. We're gonna do pretty much the same exact thing. It's gonna be an actuarial evaluation of this liability and now for the other post-employment benefits. The balance has always been on your balance sheet, but now the disclosure of it is gonna be a lot more in-depth. So,
do you have other agencies that work on paying down the OPEB balances?
Yeah. I do.
As much as we do, is there a number that you look for?
Oh, no. As long as the minimum, the annual required contribution is met, we're not gonna be the ones to tell you what you should or shouldn't be paying.
That's more of a policy.
Yeah, yeah,
Their objective is to make sure it's reported accurately.
correctly, yeah.
Have you noticed though if there's an upswing, or people pay what they have to, or do they pay more, or?
I would say most agencies are trying to pay more, on both pension and OPEB, just to pay down those unfunded liabilities, but it has to be within reason too, so it's difficult, especially when you're looking at, $10-20 million
For pension.
for pension. Yeah, sorry, let me not scare you, yeah.
Well, we're big
Yeah.
land barons now, so.
Yes.
And we'll, probably within a couple of months, we'll be bringing something forward to the board to talk about, I sent an email shortly after I started here about PERS increases.
Yeah.
And as we refine the numbers and what it means to us, we'll bring it forward to the board, and at that point in time, we can look for board guidance on, do you want to be putting additional contributions towards to pay down the unfunded liability?
As an agency, are we required to have our employees in PERS? Do we have the? So I'm saying yes. So we are.
Well,
we
we're
are.
Because our
required.
current-
We don't have
we-
the option to
yeah.
say that effective this date in the future, all employees hired at that time will get into some sort of 401k type of plan where there's maybe a more aggressive, agency matching
That can be
program.
negotiated.
Well, I don't know. I was just having that discussion with Rondi today and asked her to do some research for that very reason. I saw a newspaper article about the city of San Diego's experience where they, as of a certain date, and I don't remember what the date was, but all new employees were going to be put into a 401k as opposed to a defined benefit plan. And it's in the middle of legal battles. It first got challenged by the Employees Association and they won. And then the city challenged it and the appeals court, they won. So now they don't know if it's going to go to the state Supreme Court. But that's the city of San Diego's pension program, that's not PERS. PERS rules are different, and I don't think we have the same flexibility in ours that the city had in theirs. Because
Okay.
the city did it through a voter referendum or voter initiative that actually overrode their pension program. PERS is a little bit different, but that may be something that we could put something together, like a white paper or something for the board's
I
consideration.
mean, I'd be kind of curious to know, and just in case employees go back and listen, I make it perfectly clear that I'm just kind of spitballing here and just thinking out loud, but I'd be interested if there's any other water districts or agencies in California that don't have a pension program at all. They do just strictly like a 401k or 403b or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
There's probably some out there, smaller agencies that just, for a while we couldn't have 401ks. But it could be like PARS, there's another
Yeah.
type of, people that provide pensions, doesn't have to be, or at least historically didn't have to be through PERS.
The Social Security question, and I always have the answer, well, that's the way it is, but I know that we had a certain deadline date years ago to get out of Social Security.
1983, was it? Okay.
And if you didn't get out of it, you were still stuck in it. The city is stuck in it, the city of San Marcos, we're stuck in it. And really, my understanding is there's not much benefit to the retiree.
Depends on their income level.
About the amount of money you put in,
Yeah.
it's unjustifiable.
So the higher earning people probably won't see much Social Security benefit, but the lower wage earners or people that weren't in the PERS program for a very long time, they may see a significant amount of what would otherwise be their maximum Social Security benefit.
Okay. All right, so it affects different people, different people.
Yeah, I forget what they call it, but there's some offset that they look at, and I don't know if the offset, I think the offset comes on the Social Security side, not the PERS side, but
Yeah.
Social Security looks at your other pension earnings, and if you're above a certain level, they start reducing your Social Security benefits. And at a certain point, they go away completely if you're high enough.
Is there a chart that would show that somewhere?
I tried to find one, it's very complicated, but we can look for something. So,
I'd just be interested in just knowing, because I think sadly we spend a lot of money on Social Security that employees are not gonna ever get the benefit of. Not that we can change that, I mean, you're not gonna change the federal government, but
no,
we're not gonna clean the swamp up,
I'm the guy that's trying.
as he keeps trying.
Can I ask a question maybe for clarity? So we
Sure.
brought up this one issue about payroll maybe not being the group that would input the pay increases and should be separated. Is that something that at least the committee thinks we should institute now, or wait till the findings go in front of the full board?
To be very honest, I think, at this point we'll bring it toward the board, but I think that seeing there's other ways of skinning that cat, if John's chosen a different way, that's fine, as long as something's being done. I don't necessarily see a reason to change it unless John thinks it's necessary.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the approach we have, and I don't want it to be perceived by the other non-finance committee members that we're changing things, hurrying up, so to cover it up before it gets to them. I don't want there to be any perception of that, so.
No, because you do bring up there's other ways. The way we do it is slightly different, but it still gets checked.
Correct.
If our staff is comfortable with that and you're comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable with it. No reason to change it, it's not broke. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing it up. The more of those you bring up, the more I think we're getting our money's
That's
worth.
my job.
You know, I don't think our staff does anything wrong, but the more you bring up different ways for us to understand it,
Yes.
better answers it gives us for other people that may ask in the future.
Well, it helps us because they bring that kind of best practices perspective for us. What do other agencies do? What works well? So,
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it. Mike, you have anything else?
I'm good.
Anybody have anything else?
They'll be back in September the 25th
Yeah.
for the final field
Correct.
work.
Yep. So I'm sure we'll want to schedule, yes.
Will that be at a committee or will that be at a full board?
Oh, we will
Just-
be
oh,
here,
I'm sorry,
our
that
whole
was just
audit team will
internal.
be here, yeah,
Internal,
and
I'm
then we'll
sorry.
probably schedule another one like we
Okay.
typically do afterwards, so that we can bring.
We're gonna have the entrance
findings,
this
yeah.
one and then an exit kind of.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
So the 25th, 3 o'clock.
You wanna do that?
Well,
No.
that
doing
would
it?
be when they
Oh.
first got here.
They gotta
No,
go,
yeah.
you guys gotta go through your process.
We'll
Correct,
be
yeah.
here
What-
on the 25th, we'll
Oh.
probably be here Monday through Thursday of
We're
that
gonna
week.
come in the week
Okay.
after,
So we'll
2
probably do
weeks
it the week
or
after,
something.
once I have something to report to you,
So
yeah.
probably the first week of October or
Correct,
something like
yeah.
that will
And
be.
you'll have
Their
a list of
team has to review
exceptions.
and all
Correct.
stuff.
Exceptions. Yeah, listed.
And then I believe we're planning the financials for, was it the first meeting in December?
Correct, yes.
So that'll be when you get the audited financial statements. That's the plan as of today.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, and we'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.